Now, Evelyn, before I get to you, I just first want to show viewers scenes from the school strike for Palestine today, as James mentions, protests on the street, because this was different to what we were told to expect, you know, just students, a student strike, just wanting an end to people dying in this war. First, well, yes, there were students there. There were a few hundred, including a fair few in Islamic clothing, and African students as well, which I rather think is a bit sad and ominous, but anyway. The crowd, though, was also padded out by a lot of adults, as some pushing other leftist causes, you know, buy one, get one free. Quite a few, in fact, as well as university students from the Marxist Socialist Alliance and the equally Marxist Socialist Alternative, plus a mother who decided that she should share the mic with the kids. And the second point, Evelyn, is that this was really a hate protest against Israel, a protest that called for its destruction from the river to the sea.
The Australian state genocided Indigenous communities.
From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free!
Israel is on stolen land, and that's Palestine, not Israel.
They should give back the stolen land, it's not theirs.
Genocided Indigenous communities. The Indigenous and Palestinian struggle goes hand in hand.
Evelyn, your reaction to all that?
I think it's nothing new seeing infiltrators taking over rallies. I mean, we've seen it from, time and time again. But when you hold a public protest, it's inevitably going to attract people who want to advance their own agenda. But it's also no surprise that children in particular jump on this because they're starved of purpose and meaning in life. Kids don't know why they exist. It's how it's designed. It's how they've been indoctrinated. And so when you feed them a steady diet of Marxism, they can't help but view every conflict as a struggle between the oppressed and the oppressors. Kids are ripe for exploitation. Lefties love jumping on these things. This is the fruit of Marxism. Marxists can't see the world any other way. They instantly side with whoever they are told is oppressed. And in this case, it's Palestine. Doesn't matter how evil the oppressed class is, by virtue of them being labeled oppressed, they are seen as the good guys and the oppressors as evil. And it unfortunately is whoever has the power.
And of course, Israel is capitalist, so that makes it even more an enemy of these two Marxist groups that were there recruiting, seeding hate and trying to profit off it. But what did you make of it, James, particularly that appeal at the end, and we see it quite often now? Well, this is the cause here of Aborigines is linked to that of the Palestinians. They're both Indigenous, therefore we support them both.
Yeah, well, key Aboriginal activist Marsha Langton came out a week or so ago and said there is no similarity between the case of the Palestinians and any grievances that Australian Indigenous people have. But I'd have a couple of questions about this protest, Andrew. Number one, if it were held on Saturday rather than Thursday, how many of those young people would have been there? Number two, why are so many adults at a kids' protest unless they are simply manipulating these young children? Number three, where are the parents of these kids? How are these kids not in school and why are their parents not enforcing that? And number four, how can this generation be so ignorant? They're calling for a ceasefire. Well, there's a ceasefire on the table. It's Hamas that haven't yet signed it and come to the party. They're yelling out Allah Akbar.
Correct.
This is an expression used by terrorists as they raped, murdered and kidnapped Jewish civilians. And on top of all of that, they're protesting as kids. Well, shouldn't they be protesting for the 30 children and babies who are now being held hostage in Gaza? I am so depressed watching these protests happen. If this is the state of our country, we are in big, big trouble, Andrew.
And Evelyn and James, as you would both know, if you want to make an analogy with Indigenous people over in that conflict, the Jews were in around the area of Jerusalem a lot longer than the Palestinians. So maybe they're the Indigenous people the left should be reaching out to.